Hello, my name is Mark Holthe. I am a Canadian immigration lawyer and an ex-immigration officer, and I'm one of the founding partners of the law firm of Holthe Tillman, located in the beautiful province of Alberta, Canada. I am also the founder of the Canadian Immigration Institute and the host of the Canadian Immigration Podcast. This little video segment is the first of 3 videos that will give me the opportunity to share with you some of the most important things I've learned while helping people like you file your express entry application. I've been doing this since it was first launched on January the 1st, 2015. And in this first little video here, I'm going to share with you the essential documents you need to properly submit your express entry profile and to prepare yourself for the day you receive your ITA and are eligible to apply for permanent resident status in Canada. Now, although no documents are actually submitted when you prepare and file your express entry profile, without them, you're going to be in a real tough position trying to meet the 2-month deadline to file your PR application that is imposed upon you by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada when you are granted your ITA. I also want to let you know that these videos are my way of giving you a little bit of a sneak peek into something I've been working extremely hard at over the past 6 months. And I mean extremely hard. However, I'll tell you a little bit more about this in later videos. All right, let's dive into this. So as I indicated, essential documents that you need when preparing to submit your express entry profile. That's what we're going to talk about today. Number 1. You need your language assessment report, either through the IELTS or the CELPIP programs. You need to have that report because without it, you won't even get through the gate. The very first question it asks, well, very, very close to the beginning, is the results of your scores. And if you do not have those available, don't you dare try and guess, because at the end of the day, it will ask for the report, it will ask for the exact scores that you've received, and if you can't substantiate it and support it, you will be completely bounced from the program. So IELTS or CELPIP report is absolutely mandatory. Next, you need your ECA report, your Educational Credential Assessment Report, and that report will determine exactly what your foreign credentials will equate to as a Canadian equivalent. Without that score, you will get 0 points for your education. Now, technically, you can indicate your abilities, your educational background and everything like that, but you're not going to get a point at all unless you have actually gone through the process of obtaining a formal educational credential assessment. Number 3, your valid passport, which is a given because it's part of the components that you need to include and the information you need to include within your profile. 4, if applicable, you need to have a copy of your work permit or your study permit or your visitor record because you need that UCI number that's on it. Now, if you're applying from outside of Canada, this is an optional thing, but if you're in Canada, you'll need it handy. Then you'll need proof of settlement funds if applicable. Now, I say that because when you're completing the eligibility assessment, you have to be able to indicate exactly the funds that you have. And there is a certain threshold that you'll need unless you are officially exempt from the need to provide settlement funds. So you need to make sure that you have those in place. Next, your reference letters. These are essential because they're the ones that are going to give you a very, very clear understanding of which National Occupational Classification profile your work experience would equate to in Canada. And so it allows you to confirm your NOC. And I've seen lots of people who have gone forward, indicated what they felt their NOC was, but when they got their reference letters after, the duties listed on the reference letter don't equate to the NOC that they chose for themselves when they filed their express entry profile. And the problem really arises once you receive your invitation to apply. You're trying to upload the information, and then it doesn't match up with the information you put in your original profile. So you have to make sure that you get those reference letters. And let's face it, with 60 days to file your permanent resident application after you received your ITA, if you have to get reference letters from employers that are not cooperative, well, your whole possibility of obtaining permanent residence rests in the hands of that ex-employer, that old employer, if they're not willing to give those reference letters to you. So you're far better off going ahead, getting them in advance, having them with you, and being prepared right from the onset. Okay, next, your job offer. Now, remember, if this applies to you and you have an employer in Canada who's able to offer you this job offer, you must have the supporting documents to back up this offer. And the very first one is a copy of the labor market impact assessment that employer obtained when they initiated or extended this job offer to you. And then, of course, the job offer letter. And there are very specific requirements within each of the reference letters and the job offer letter that you need to include. All right, let's take a look at some of these documents. So your language test results, at least the reporting results, will look similar to these. On the left, we have the IELTS, and on the right, the CELPIP. And that's generally speaking what they look like. The ECA reports, and this one comes from the World Education Services, WES, which is very common for people in Canada. It will look like this, and it will indicate exactly what your foreign credential equates to, the Canadian Equivalency Summary. And in this case, this individual received the equivalency of a diploma 3 years. All right. Next on our list is the passport, which everybody has your passport. And ultimately, you're going to need your passport number, the issue date, expiry date, and that type of information to complete your profile. So you're better off just getting it in advance and making sure you have it available. Next, like I said, your work permit, study permit, or visitor record. You'll be able to see your UCI in kind of the top right-hand corner. And you'll see here on this document, although it's in pretty tiny print, you'll see that it starts with an 8837. It's that section right there, the UCI. Next, your proof of funds. Now, I put this up here for information purposes. If you are not alone, not single, well, if you are single, you'll need to show that you have at least $12,164 in Canadian funds. And you can see every individual that you add into your family group that's coming with you will increase the amount of funds that you have, that you must have to settle in Canada, unless there's an exemption. Now, not everyone needs to provide those funds. And the people that have received an invitation to apply through the Canadian Experience class do not require proof of funds. Also, if you have a valid job offer supported by a labor market impact assessment from a Canadian employer, you also don't need to provide proof of funds. But if you think about it, if you are immigrating to Canada, have no connection with Canada, you're not just going to hit the pavement running. You're going to need to have a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a backup to help you get a place to live, to kind of get settled, to figure out where everything is here in this country and how to become a Canadian. You need to find a job. It takes time for that job to pay you. And so if you're coming over with your family, and if I back up one here, this is the amount of money that the government feels you need to have in place to support yourself to get established in Canada. And if you have no money, no resources, you're going to be in a real difficult situation if you get off the plane and have nothing to support yourself. So the government doesn't want to see that happen. So they require these proof of funds. But as I indicated before, if you fit within one of these exemptions, then you don't need to provide it. Reference letters. Okay, I've kind of skipped through this a little bit, but let's just open this up. You must provide here the official document that is printed on company letterhead. It must include your name, the company contact information, address, telephone number, email, and signature if you're supervisor. It should show all positions that you've held with the company, and include this information, which is the information more often missed than anything else when you're requesting a reference letter from a prior employer. And these details are job title, duties and responsibilities, job status, the dates you worked for the company, And here's the kicker. This is where it happens more often than not. The number of hours worked per week, annual salary, and benefits. Let's take a look at the offer of employment. The offer of employment also needs to be printed on company letterhead. State you will be employed permanently, and that's important. And this is one that's often missed. So it needs to say that you'll be employed permanently, that the job is continuous, paid full-time work. And just for your reference, 30 hours per week is considered full-time. It must list the skill type. So is it A? Is it O? Is it B? And I tend to include also the 4-digit knock code just for good measure. It also must include the contact information for the company, address, telephone number, and email. And remember, the job offer has to be supported by an LMIA. So the company must have one. Otherwise, it's not going to be considered a job offer sufficient enough to get you those magical 600 extra points that will guarantee the issuance of an ITA. All right, so that is the conclusion of the documents that you need to have in order to be ready to dive in and submit your profile. In the next Express Entry tip for video number 2, I'm going to talk about one of the more common questions I get, and that is, what do I do if my employer will not give me a properly worded reference letter for Express Entry? Is there anything I can use instead of the reference letter to support my skilled work experience? And so that's what I'm going to be covering in the next video. I look forward to catching up with you then. So we'll see you in video number 2.